Hi, folks. Welcome to the Moving On Podcast. I'm Jay Norman, and this is my wife.
Hi, I'm Jessie Norman. Just like many of you, Jay and I have both walked through some difficult seasons in our lives.
And we know just how easy it is to get stuck.
We now have 5 beautiful
and crazy
children, and because of everything we've been through, our home operates on grace.
A concept we didn't fully understand until way later on in life.
Until we actually needed it ourselves. We want to share through stories of love and laughter,
how we were moving on, and how big of a game changer grace can be.
in relationship with one another, and how we treat ourselves, and in our case, blending a family.
Something that may just require the largest amount of grace to date.
Preach.
You never know what road life's going to take you on. We have a podcast.
Yes, we do, and we really hope y'all enjoy it.
Hi, babe.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
How does it sound way over there?
I don't know. I'm nervous.
So this is our first time in our new studio. She's looking at me cross-eyed. And I'm sitting with my, kind of at an angle.
Oh, yeah, we've got to figure it out. It took us like 20 minutes to rearrange things and still don't have it the way I want it.
And I'm sweating.
Why?
It's just hot over here.
Because we're upstairs.
I know, but at least we're not in the attic. It'd be worse.
You think?
Yep. So, episode 15. Mm-hmm. And in our new studio, and hope the sound sounds good.
Yeah.
It's going to be new for us. And we've kind of had a whirlwind, I guess, last 8 or 9 days. Mm-hmm. A little road trip to see some family.
Yep. We had a really great time. We went to Memphis, Missouri, which is very northern Missouri, to see my grandmothers. And in August, they'll turn 97 and 92.
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun to see them. And speaking of Memphis, we went by and saw our friend Steve and Terry at Gore, Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And the ones referenced in the horse accident story. And so we go to see them, and we tell them we're going to Memphis. Well, we're just going to stop and eat with them.
I forgot.
I didn't say anything. And we get in the car and we drive east and south, I don't know, probably 20 miles to go eat supper. And we're talking, they go, well, at least this will get y'all closer. And they were thinking we were going to Memphis, Tennessee.
That's funny.
And a little bit of out of our way to come to their house to go to Memphis, but it was pretty funny the way it worked out.
Yeah, it's funny, too, because they wanted to take us to this other restaurant that was like an hour, because that's how they are. They would just ride, because I rode with Terry and Jay rode with Steve, and so they were, in their heads, they were like, well, let's just drive an hour with our friends, and then we'll drive an hour back, and they'll be an hour towards Memphis, almost like taking our trip with us.
Well, it was an awesome idea. We should have just said, let's go to Muskogee the other direction. It would have worked out really well.
Yeah.
So we make a road trip to go see family, see the grandparents, and all your siblings came.
Yep.
Your mama and your dad. Mm-hmm. Had a big gathering, stayed there 3 days. Mm-hmm. And then we went and saw your best friend from high school, Bloomington, Indiana. She's still grinning about that one.
I know. I'm still we had so much fun. I have not seen her in 10 years. She flew in. She was laughing that I knew the exact amount of days because it was like 10 years and 4 months, but it's because she flew in for Liza's birth. And that I know exactly how old Liza is. Oh, my goodness. It was just so nice, and we were best friends. Our funny story is she moved into town. She says that she moved 17 times before moving to Baton Rouge, where we went to high school. And we met in English and fell madly in love the moment we met each other. But on a side note, my parents had friends move into town, and they kept asking me to look for their daughter, to befriend their daughter, because she wouldn't know anyone. And I kept kind of putting my parents off, like, I guess I'll look for her, whatever, it's fine. And they kept asking me. Well, within the first week, my best friend came and spent the night. Within days of knowing each other, she came and spent the night. And when my parents saw her, it was the same person. So it was all...
You'd already taken care of it, didn't even know it.
It was just so kismic, you know? It was just... And that's how our whole life has gone.
Well, watching y'all together, I can see that for sure.
Yeah, we are, just completely opposites, but cut from the same cloth,
right.
if that's possible. Just taken two totally different life paths, of course, like we all have. But when we came back together, just how many, I think we were driving down the road and she was wearing an exact outfit that I own,
Right.
and went down to do laundry and she used the same laundry detergent. We showed up for a workout and it was the exact way you and I train. And I was just like, it's just so neat how it's all unfolded. And we could have talked for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
And you guys hit it off real well.
Oh, yeah, extremely smart person. You know how we're always, when we're talking, we're always saying, what's that word? We can't think of it. How do you say that?
We always say that.
And we do that every day. But with her, there's never that lull. One time in 2 days, 2.5 days of conversation, one time she didn't have a word. And
she's brilliant. Math is kind of my thing. And, that's hers and it's not mine.
Right.
So it used to make me very uncomfortable, but she and I have learned to just go with it and kind of laugh it off.
Right.
Because everyone probably feels a bit inept with it when they're around her because she is just so brilliant.
Right. Yeah.
But she has a fiance and he's wonderful.
Yeah.
He is so wonderful. And so we just had the nicest time with them and cannot wait to see them again. And so it was just this perfect little trip of spending time with my family and then going to see my friends and then kind of making a loop back through Tennessee.
Right. And so kind of back to how we traveled. We left Stephen Terry after our late supper and we were wanting to get to Memphis early the next morning, and we're still 10 hours away. So we drive that night, and we make it close to Kansas City, and it's about 1 in the morning, as far as I can make it. So we stop, and we go to sleep, get up the next morning, and I drive all the way. I'm getting tired the closer we get. And I was like, Jess, I can't make it. She's been napping for a couple of hours and stuff, and so I felt like I can't make it any further. And I know we're close, but I really kind of lost track of where we are.
And I wake up and I know exactly where we are, and so I was just like, oh, okay, because
that was just as far as I could go.
Because I know us to be about 2 miles outside of town, outside of where my grandmother lives. And so I just switched with him and I was like, what is this going to look like? But I know he's the king of, 8 to 10 minute naps. He'll stop a combine in the field after 20 hours and take like a 8-minute nap and be good to go. And so I was like, oh, okay, and anyways, he was so passed out that after this whole trek of kind of a trip broken up into 2 days, we finally get there and I just kind of had to make a few loops around town just so he could get a few minutes of sleep.
So I got to shorten that when we got there, but that was kind of a crazy deal. I should have pulled over just a little bit ahead of that because I was struggling for about 30 minutes before I stopped.
Mm-hmm. Mom had us on her radar for sure because we made like our second loop around Memphis and she was like, how are you guys doing? Like she knew we should have been there already, And we were making a few nap loops.
Right. So we finally get there and we've got 2 sisters,
a brother.
2 brother-in-law and your brother, mom and dad, aunt, uncle, and grandmother, all in the same house.
Yep.
And everybody gathered up, and they had been fishing before we got there, and they caught a bunch of fish and fried it. Mm-hmm. We ate that one night, and that was really awesome. And then they talked me into going fishing with them, and I'm not much of a fisherman. So I just Game of Thrones for my brother-in-law. I was his squire as he fished, and that was kind of entertaining.
He was so happy. I don't think his fishing experiences will ever match the one in Memphis because Jay just kind of stood and was his fishing caddy, and it was just a dream to him.
Well, it was more, too, that the first 5 times he cast, he brought a fish in every time, and he caught like 15 or 18 fish that first day.
Yeah.
So he had an awesome experience for sure.
Yeah, y'all had a nice time. That was a nice pond.
Yeah, we really did.
It was really happy to see y'all have a good time because if y'all had a poor fishing trip, that changes our time together, you know? So to see y'all kind of skip back and be excited, it was nice.
Well, and I think too, that was something I wasn't really expecting to do. And I'm good if I go fishing, and really good if I don't. But I had a good time being with them, and talking about not being expecting something to do. We kind of talked about the expectations we had for the trip and what we thought it would be, and how it would work, and then how it all turned out.
Yeah, I always tease that my boxing coach doubles as my counselor.
Right.
Because she's so mentally healthy, and like I've told you guys, they've kind of just walked through similar things that we've walked through 10 years before us.
Right.
So they're just an amazing resource for us, her and her husband. And she was telling me, what you have to be aware of and what you have to realize is that we all have these stories, these ideas in our heads of what's going to take place for the event,
right.
for the night, for the week. We all have these ideas and these things in our heads, and you really just are all on this same course with each other. And
right.
it can become a crash course. It can, remain peaceful, but it's just really up to you. And you have to allow others to have their expectations and their ideas, but then also have your needs be met too.
Right.
It's so tricky, but I'm such a imagery person. So if I can have a picture of everybody with this, balloon above their head of what they wanted for this
right.
evening, it helps me to realize that none of ours are going to resemble the other person's.
Right.
Maybe if we're similar or in the same family and we come from the same experiences, they might look the same, but usually mine is not going to look like yours. Yours is not going to look like his. And how quickly it can become a tug of war because of, no, you're starting to do something that I didn't think we were going to do tonight.
Right. And that's not only a dynamic between family, it's a dynamic between each other when you're a couple, and fitting all that in, you trying to keep me happy and me making sure you're happy, and so on and so forth, for sure.
And so it was really good for us to talk about that before we went on this trip. And I kept telling you, my word that was being kind of spoken to me was allowance, just kind of allowing others to be who they are, allowing others to get what they were expecting out of this without demanding that, no, my story needs to take place exactly the way I see it, because who are we? And no one, we need to be reminded, no one put you in charge, and we start to get so selfish and think that we are in charge.
Right.
And no, dang it, this is my life, and this needs to go exactly this way. And so it was such a perfect practice to go on this trip, because we do have some really strong personalities in my family. I'm one of them. And just to practice and just to go through the little circumstances and remain quiet and keep the peace and just enjoy how that felt, or the times that I didn't, and not enjoy how it felt, like it just did not feel great. So I really did like this trip.
I think it was awesome. I mean, it's a small
nice.
home that your mom and them grew up in. Everybody's kind of crowded in there or on the front porch, and I thought your family and your siblings were awesome and all easy to get along with.
They were awesome, and you were so sweet to do that, to be a part of that for 3-4 days straight, and you didn't need to, escape to here or go driving or anything, and it just meant so much to me that you would do that for me with my family and for my family. And so when you and I would have our normal daily disagreements or things that, we're spending a lot of time together.
We did really well, though.
I know. We did perfect. I don't think we got in one, dust up last episode. And, but what I was meaning is my tank was so full with what you had poured in to me, what you had invested into me and to my family, whenever you would do the little things that would normally kind of send us into a dust up, I just kept going, nope. He has done so much for me this week.
I was the same because you did something too.
What, you thought I did?
I'm just kidding.
Why?
Because you said the things that I normally do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Couldn't help but point that out.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you. But yeah, so you just had to remember that if you were ever impatient with me or short with me, or you were short with the waitress one day, and I was just like, whoa. And then I was like, oh yeah, he's been with the Rushes for 4 days. Like, that's a lot. It would be a lot with any family, not my family, but my family is very loud and emotional, and we all talk at the same time, and it just meant a lot to me that you did that. I really appreciated it.
Well, I was glad to do it, and it was a fun trip. I enjoyed being with them. They're all easy for me to get along with, and I like that part of it. But
they are awesome.
It is interesting to watch all the dynamics roll in together and kind of sit back and as I've gotten to know y'all, see how it fits in and figure out where to fit into it. It's just a lot easier now.
Well, then, anytime you're with someone else's family, it's not really about you. So you really just had to kind of lay that down. Whatever, let's cook Jay's favorite, or let's go back to where Jay used to love going when he was a kid. You were with my family in our grandmother's home, with our childhood memories. And so it was you kind of checking out for the sake of me and my family for 4 days. And that's just huge points with me. Right. You and I have done really well because of that sacrifice that you've made. I've just not wanted to bite the hand that you were being so nice by doing that. And so I wanted to have a lot more patience in our relationship this week because of it. And it just goes back into, you doing things for me and me wanting to do things for you because I see that, not you demanding me or me demanding you, just that love language, just letting it happen.
Yeah, for sure. So my wife, I would call a little bit of a piss cutter, if I can say that on here, just because you're a piss cutter.
What are you going to say?
Well, so you got two grandmothers there, and the other one, she's in a nursing home. We weren't there with her all the time, but she is a really tall, 4 foot, 11-ish,
maybe.
But she is full of fire at 92, right?
She'll be 92 in August.
And I see where some of that piss cutter comes from. She is really witty at 92 and really, really fun to be around.
My brother and my dad and Jay and I went and walked over to she's in assisted living. And I used to be sad that she was in the assisted living, but my dad told me that she has waited her whole life to be there because she manages. She's one.
But she told us she had kind of let that go a little bit.
Yeah. She told she wanted to manage the place, and so that's why she'd wanted to move in there. And so it's so funny to see her. We kind of call her the mayor because she thinks she runs the place. So we love going to see her, but they had kind of a little church service while we were there, and I felt so bad that we had interrupted that because I didn't feel like she had much to do during the day, and we were kind of taking her only activity. So while we were sitting in the side room, they had gone through like 5 or 6 hymns. Well, they got to one hymn, and the pianist, she didn't really know the right keys to play, and then the group as a whole didn't really know the hymn. And we all were keeping it quiet. We didn't want to offend her about her friends or anything, but she finally turned to us. She goes, I don't think they know that song. And we got so tickled. That's kind of what we said the whole rest of the trip. I don't think they know that song.
And my favorite thing, and I think you talked about on here before, is how she always says she wished she could be tall. And that always makes me laugh.
She always says, I wanted to be tall, Jess. And I'll say, I know, Grandma, you tried. You tried.
So, we talked about our expectations for the trip, and you had found a quote that kind of fell in line with that we had discussed some before.
Yeah.
And Go ahead.
Sorry, babe. I found this quote, and it's kind of echoey in here,
Yeah, it is.
isn't it?
Yeah, I'm having a little trouble getting used to it, too.
So it's almost like when I go to talk, it kind of scares me a little bit, but...
Different than what we're used to, for sure.
Yeah. But we'll get it figured out. Sure. It's just going to be a learning curve because we're so used to it in there.
Right.
And so we'll get it figured out and kind of tweak things. But so anyways, this quote that I found, it says, let go of the expectation that if you work on yourself enough, you won't struggle anymore. If you work on yourself enough, you'll understand what the struggle is for. And it's by Brianna Wiest. And she has a book, a self-help book. And I just thought that was so beautiful and so applicable to what we talk about and what we walk through, because we've talked about bullying yourself and saying, I should have this by now. And right. I'm too old to be learning these things. And I've been working on this for so long. Why am I still struggling with this? I should have this. And just beating yourself up and having guilt about the process instead of having grace for yourself that this is what we're going to be doing for the rest of our life, is learning and growing. And we're not ever going to really feel like we have it.
Right. Well, and we won't ever have it. And I mean, that's the thing. It's a constant moving target. And we found that and going and being with your family. And it's changed. And it's awesome. But it's always something different and something, to put together as a group and keep everybody happy. And it's just, you sit back and watch it all with the kids and the expectations you have with them and how it's going to improve, and then you get a kink thrown in.
Yes.
Whether it's with a kid or an ex or whatever.
And it wipes everything else out for the moment. Right. You have to really reel yourself back in and go, no, this does not take everything, all of our progress out. This is this moment that's right. not going correctly. And you have to take a step back and really see it for what it is.
Right.
So I wonder what that is about us that tries to, in one fell swoop, undo all of the doing.
I don't know. It just does, or it's just life. I mean, it's just a constant, change and different scenarios coming in and things that are kind of after you one way and letting you go the other. And I think that's why we have to work so hard to stay on top of it.
I know. I got triggered today. Something happened, and I just immediately just needed you because I knew that you would be able to say exactly what I needed you to say.
Right.
And even the things that you said were not nice.
Right.
They weren't, they were nice to me,
right.
but they weren't nice to the person that triggered me. And I just kept saying, the uglier he got, I just kept going, thank you, babe. Thank you, babe. And he would be even uglier, and I would go, thank you, babe. Thank you. And then we reeled it back in and we came up with our game plan.
Right.
And so it was like, sometimes he'll be ugly about someone or I'll be ugly about someone, and we'll both kind of correct each other and we'll go, it's just us. What I'm trying to explain is your marriage is a safe space,
right.
And I know your heart and you know my heart, and right. I'm not going to send you away from the Lord being ugly about someone that's harmed you before right. we come back and now we are going to go forward with a healthier right. Perspective. So that's why I was like, call me, because I can't call a girlfriend, or I can't do that with anyone else. Right. That's me and you. That's what we share together because we know each other.
Well, that's what we do for each other. Right or wrong. I started out wrong and we corrected it.
Yeah, we did.
Got headed down the right path.
We came back around.
We did.
Thanks, babe.
And that reminds me, talking about, what the trigger was and, somebody from the past. And it reminds me of a post you had on Instagram this week with one of my favorite songs.
No, my favorite.
I said it first, but go ahead.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't remember if we had talked about where the name of our podcast had come from.
Right.
And Moving On podcast comes from a song by Rascal Flatts called I'm Moving On.
Right.
And the lyrics are just so beautiful, and I feel like everyone can really relate to them. And it's something that kind of joins us because they're pretty personal lyrics that we'd have to all be pretty honest to say, oh, right. gosh, me too,
sure.
So my girlfriend, Megan, she makes signs, beautiful signs. She's made several for us. And one morning I was just thinking, I would love to have a sign here in the studio with one of my favorite lyrics in the song. And it just says, finally content with the past I regret. You know, the thing about your past is no matter who you are or no matter how badly you want it to change or what you do to change it, you can't. It's just there. There's nothing you can do. And for me, that's what just kind of stuck me straight down in the mud, just frozen and strangled and paralyzed and incapable of any movement, going back, going sideways, going forward. And luckily, I had a counselor, a pastor in town, and that's when he reintroduced me to the concept of grace. And it feels so silly to think that I didn't know what grace was because I was raised from a baby in church. But I really did not. I really remember grasping the concept when I was 33 or 34 and thinking, knowing that I didn't understand it until then. And so anyways, that's where our podcast kind of stemmed from, is learning that grace and knowing that there are these times, these seasons in each of our lives that create us to freeze in space and not be able to go forward. And that's just not what we want for ourselves or for our children or for any of you.
Well, and I think for us, I mean, it took really us getting together and being married for a year probably to really, you know, reconcile all that personally together. I mean, you know, about our exes and everything that went on. And to me, that's ultimately where it came from. I mean, we kind of went through it together. We figured it out with each other, and we did. I mean,
you were saying things that I remember. I was saying to my pastor, then when you and I got together, you were saying the exact same things to me. And so I was able, my sister always says, turn and teach. And so I was able to learn from him, turn to you and teach you everything he had taught me. Then, because we are so close and there is so much trust in our relationship, we were able to just go at it into the truth, you know, and just figure it out together. And I would have never gotten to this space without you.
Yeah, and I mean, it was a lot of work, and we've been through a lot to get that. But I mean, that really hits home what you wrote.
It does, because you cannot change it. You cannot change the past, no matter what. And so the only place you can get to with it is okay. You have to get to where you are okay with it so that you can move forward. And I think that the enemy wants you distracted and sitting and wallowing in it and thinking on it and analyzing it and going back and trying to prove that no, you were right and no, you weren't as bad as you all thought. And there's another line in that song that I love almost as much as this one. And if you are from a big family, if you are from a small town, there's so many different reasons that you would understand this line. But it's, I've lived in this place and I know all the faces. Each one is different, but they're always the same. They mean me no harm, but it's time that I face it. They'll never allow me to change. And that one spoke so much to me, just because there's wisdom and grace. You know, they don't mean me any harm, but they're never going to allow me to change. And it's just another way to be content with the truth. Like they're not coming after me. They're not meaning to be ugly. This is just how it is. And so there's just so much in this song that's, let's just embrace it and accept it, and we don't need to talk about it anymore. And let's just move forward. And so anyways, that's where the name of our podcast comes from. And when we had put that on Instagram this week, it seemed to hit a lot of people right where it had hit me.
Right.
And so it told me that we are dealing with this.
Sure.
A lot of us still really are needing to talk about
Well,
this.
and I mean, it's just like today. You seeing that and it coming back and
oh my goodness,
biting you a little bit, even though you weren't anticipating that happening. You moved on, but you got back there pretty quick.
Yeah, and I didn't take a second to go, why am I struggling over this? I knew why I was. I knew this one's not great.
No.
And that's why I called Jay and wanted to, kind of rest in him and let him do the dirty work.
I can be the bad guy sometimes.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to say is I didn't have to say anything ugly. I just had to sit on the phone and let him say it, and then we were done.
Yeah.
It was over because it triggered me, but it shouldn't have, and it's just human nature, and that's how we are. And you don't have to bully yourself, and you don't have to, you don't have to sit in it for long. Just go on.
Yeah, don't sit it any longer than you have to, for sure.
No.
It's sure not fun.
No, but it got me. My girlfriend got triggered the other day, and I was like, where's your trigger pack? And she was like, what? And I was like, like your trigger pack, like, if you get triggered, to open it up. And so some people, it's a run or chocolate or a Xanax or a beer. And so I was teasing her about her trigger pack. And so I had to open mine up today for sure. But just knowing what triggers you and what helps. One of my little girls was having the roughest morning. And so I was able to talk to her about that this morning. Just whenever we do get in that funk, let's remember the things that we enjoy that can help us to get out of it.
Right.
Whether it's going outside to run around with your dogs or jumping in the pool or taking a bubble bath, let's have a plan in place, and that's big for us too.
Right.
So,
well, I think it's key to making it all work. And when you get in a situation like that, and that you can call call me, and I'm your trigger pack or whatever.
Mm-hmm. You're my trigger
I can
pack.
call you and and get us out of it in the right way, but at the same time, get us back in the right direction too.
You're a healthy trigger pack.
Thank you, babe.
I don't need a prescription to get you.
Every time that we do our podcast or we talk about it or I see the name, that song is playing in the back of my head.
Mm-hmm. Is it?
Yeah, every time.
My girlfriend said, I had posted it, and she said that the day before then, she had listened to the song all the way through 4 times in a row. I was like, what are the chances?
That's awesome.
I love Rascal Flatts.
Yeah, I don't know how that boy does that,
but yes, you do. You're always so ugly. Oh, my phone just
thanks,
dinged.
babe, for not putting it on silence.
So
And that phone dinging, and it's been dinging since about 7 o'clock this morning. I've been gone, but it was dinging early. Well, before that, it was before I left. Yes, because
you know why?
Well, I know, and I was going to just mention that on here.
Yes.
We were talking about your siblings and your family, and they all are in Baton Rouge, and we got a hurricane bearing down on them, and the Mississippi River is full of water. So
yes.
we're concerned about them, and obviously they're really concerned.
I'm so sorry. I can't reach my phone. I'll have to tell them they're on our podcast.
Yeah, they're on our podcast just dinging away.
My sisters and my mom, they have their furniture on cinder blocks and buckets, and they've gone to the store, and they are in storm mode.
Right.
They flooded in 2016, so they know the drill. They've lost power today for a couple of hours, each of them. Yeah. And so we have it's been a heavy texting day because they're not working, and there's, I think they've all had their church canceled tomorrow. And so they're all just kind of waiting on the storm and on their phones.
Right.
So I'm able to talk to them all day today. I'm thankful, but
So we're praying for them and
gosh.
hoping everything goes good for not just them, but everybody down there. Those people have been through a lot for sure.
I cannot get my jaw to unclench because that's where my stress goes. And so just thinking about their furniture on cinder blocks, oh goodness, and being here, we can't help them and we can't save them. They're too stubborn to come north, so I can't get them here. So this morning has been a pretty stressful morning, just trying to get some focus. I think it took me like 3 hours to do one load of laundry because I just cannot stay focused because I'm so worried about them.
Right. So we leave Memphis, Missouri. We head to Bloomington, Indiana. And, to get there and see your dynamic with her after 10 years, and it looked like it'd been 10 minutes, was pretty entertaining to hear about the past and watch y'all laugh and stuff. It was a lot of fun being there. And they were some really, really neat people.
Very. It was so nice. And one of the things that we took away from there is their garage was immaculate. I mean, they had just moved in. Someone had pegboarded the entire garage. And it was I just stood in their garage and just did a full circle with my mouth just dropped wide open.
Yeah.
And because ours does not look like that. So we spent the night, and when we left them, we drove to Memphis, Tennessee. And I think we got home at like 4 o'clock. And Jay unloaded the vehicle. I'm not kidding. I got out of my side of the car and walked to my garage. And I remember it was 4 o'clock. And I didn't stop until 9 o'clock. And
I was thrilled.
Well, the thing with Jay and I is, Jay tends to, a large farm. And so when he gets here, he's done tending. I was raised by a dad that he worked on the exterior and my mom worked on the interior. That was kind of their deal with a lot of couples from their generation.
Right.
And so the way I was raised is not the way we exist. And so Jay's farm is his work. Our home is my work. And so when I'm working on the garage and thinking, he should be doing this, that's not true. It's mine. And so normally that would be a problem for me because it is kind of a tearing away of who I am. In the past, I've definitely thrown adult tantrums like, you should want to help me and you should be helping me and you should be doing this. And of course, getting zero results from Jay because pretty much I'm pushing you away instead of drawing you near in our relationship and in our home. And so when I got home, we had such a fulfilling week. Like I was saying earlier, you had invested so much in me so that I could be with my family. My cup was so full. You had filled my cup to where usually that would have frustrated me so badly to be out there. And I worked for like 5 hours. I was just on a mission after seeing their garage and knowing, oh my gosh, we can have a peaceful space out here. I had no idea because it's just junked out there. And so I just went after it and just kind of decided, nope, I'm not in charge of him. Because like also what we were saying earlier is you had an idea in your head what it would look like when we got home from driving. And I had my idea. I was going to work on the garage. And so it was the allowance of, it's fine if he's inside the home and I'm working on the garage. That's fine because this is what we want for ourselves for this evening. And so just laying down my sword and just allowing you to be who you are while I did what I needed to do, which was crazy. I mean, you should not get out of a road trip. You shouldn't. But you didn't.
I agree.
But you didn't bully me and say, Jess, we've driven all day. I'm exhausted. I want you to sit on the couch with me and watch Game of Thrones. And I didn't bully you and say, you should be helping me and doing this. There was one time that I came inside. Out of all these hours, I came inside and I asked him to help me get the Christmas tree in the attic outside. And he kind of, through some facial expressions, showed me what we're talking about right now. And I was like, fine, I'll do it, which I'm going to kill myself. I almost killed myself last time trying to get the Christmas tree up the ladder into the attic. And you could just hear him running after me because he knew I was being stubborn. So he came outside and helped me with the Christmas tree. But other than that, I just decided I'm going to whistle while I work. I'm going to enjoy myself. And I'm going to let him do what he does. And I'm going to do what I want to do. And we're going to be great. And we're going to have an allowance for each other to be who we are. And it was just so nice. Every time you came outside, instead of fussing or pouting or anything, I made up my mind that every time you came to check on me, I was going to give you a kiss and a hug. Oh. And that's what we did. You came out, looked and see what I was doing. I gave you a kiss and a hug. You went back inside. And the next day, he came home with a bunch of cable and hardware, and I didn't have to ask him nothing. He just grabbed the ladder and hung a cable because he knew twinkle lights were kind of in my plan. And it was just so nice to me, because if I would have thrown those tantrums or just been so upset with you and tried to pull on the rope and get you to do what I wanted you to do, you would not have gone to that hardware store. You would have been still so frustrated with me. We would have been in a bad space with each other, and we would have, not been in a good enough space for you to want to love on me through my love language, which is acts of service.
Well, and you always talk about taking a pulse.
Yeah.
And so the first time I come out there, I've got my pulse reader up waiting to see, what I'm fixing to get when I come through that.
Babe, you're not a pulse taker.
I was then.
Okay.
I was waiting to see what this pulse looked like. And I'm not going to say to my amazement because it wasn't that dramatic, but I really was surprised to get a kiss and a hug and a smile when you were working in the garage. And I wasn't that I didn't do anything the whole time. I was pretty busy doing other stuff. I just wasn't working in the garage.
You were in the house.
Yeah. And so, but anyway, it was something that I really appreciated.
Yeah.
That, to get that versus maybe what I was expecting to get.
I'm not that easy to live with, you guys, and I don't think that's very surprising to any of you. I just don't.
Yeah, because it had been a pretty long day of driving.
Yeah.
And I was ready to relax a little bit.
Right.
For sure.
And I just wasn't. I know I went off on a tangent and didn't finish that because of seeing their garage. I wanted that. I was a driven woman that I was going to get that. And we made so much progress. Before we had left on vacation, my girlfriend had driven out to help me with kind of some design aspects of the party barn and the house. And so I already had in my mind what I was mulling over for about 10 days, what I was wanting to do. And it was just kind of ready to jump into action and do that. So the girls and I have been working on those things for the past, actually, since we got back in town.
She's never stopped.
My little girl, she was crying this morning because all we do is work.
The old slave driver.
And I was like, pump the brakes, sister. Like, you swam yesterday. She worked 90 minutes. Yeah. But to them, it's a lot. And I text her dad because he always worries that they're bored when they're with him. And so I told him, I was like, I topped your board. One of them's crying because I'm a slave driver and I've made her work the whole time. And he wrote back, how dare you? Yeah. Because that's what we want. But it was just so funny. Right. But my other little girl, she really has worked.
Yeah, she's kind of put on a show.
She's worked for 2 full days. She took a whole buffet, sanded it, took all the hardware off, the drawers out, sanded them, painted everything. I bought new hardware, and she put it all back on. And, that's like 4 hours of my life that she gave me, by doing that. And so she's 13. So I'm just so glad to have a big hand here at the house now.
Sure.
It's just so nice. And so we're recording. This is a Saturday afternoon, and we really do need to go find some fun because they really have put in some work, and so have you, and so have I. So
well, and that too. That makes me think about when you were talking about how you were raised, and how your mom and dad did it, and how I was raised, and how I think, and that's something that you and I have had to hash out through our marriage of. Like you were talking about where you might have thrown an adult tantrum before. We've been together enough now that you realize that I was raised, working away from the home. And when we got home, we rested.
But who did the work?
Well, I mean, we did stuff that had to be done that, things that we could do. But, my mom and my sisters did the other things there and not necessarily that we wouldn't. It's just like, we were rolling like that. Or if we were gone, we came home, we just rested and we started to work, on Monday.
Right.
And that's just the way it was. And you're not geared that way. You came home and got after it immediately. And that's something we have fought about in the past and something we've had to work through. And, and I do think it's big on your part to be able to realize that, it's not that I'm geared any different. I'm just geared at different times,
Well, and you have different expectations.
Right.
So, but because when we were at my house, we were working because my dad didn't come off a tractor. He came from a desk.
Right.
And so, an office. And so it is totally different. You don't think about it, And also, I've told you guys in other episodes is I loved working as a family, and I can't get my family to work together because they're tired. They've come from the farm, and that's not what we're going to do here at this house is spend an entire day working on the property because this is their only time to unwind, So,
well, and it's not like that year round, but I mean, a lot of times it is, and I think that's something we've had to figure out where to plug in where. And obviously, if we've got a party or something to do, and I know it's got to be done, then we're going to do it no matter how tired we are. But every day it's...
For sure. I think it's just about figuring it out and communicating and adjusting and allowing for everyone's ideas to take place all at the same time. I think that is just so healthy. When she told me that, it changed something in me.
Right.
It made something click. And then I think too, just staying close enough to the Lord where He can step in for those anxieties that you have in your relationships. And so I think that's been a big part of it too, is just starting every morning with Him so that when those things do occur during the day, I can take a breath and just remember what matters.
Right, and you've talked about that a lot here of late. Your kind of your schedule change in the morning and what you're doing it different. And I will say that I can definitely, from my standpoint, see a difference in you.
I hope so.
Just from doing that. And that's what I meant when I texted you this morning that, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for being
Thanks, babe.
consistent and getting up and doing that every day because I know it's not easy to get done every morning.
Thanks, babe. I'm the same with you. We were trashed after our trip. I mean, we were so tired. I've told y'all we drove and then I worked on the garage for 5 hours. But, he woke up that next morning at 4:30 and went to the gym. And I just thought, there is not enough money on the planet. There was not enough money on the planet to get me out of that bed. And we had trained pretty hard with my friend in Indiana.
Yeah.
And so by the time we got home, that's when all of that soreness set in. And so I could barely roll over in the bed, much less get up, drive 20 minutes, and let a trainer kill me.
I might have been thinking about that fried fish and fried chicken that I ate. So.
Our big joke for our family was this Jell-O poke cake. They take a white cake and they poke holes in it, and then they pour Jell-O over it, and then there's this wonderful layer of whipped cream ice, to ice the top. And we all pretty much fought over it the entire trip.
About every 30 minutes you look in there and somebody be hidden behind the refrigerator. Oh, you'd see the elbow pop out getting by. And you knew you didn't have to go look. You knew what they were eating.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my brother-in-law texted and said, turns out Jell-O poke cake has some calories in it. Because we had all come home and weighed, and it was not good.
Yeah, definitely. That's something, too, that I loved about your family is that, and mine's the same way. I mean,
they are.
That's effort. And, we talked about that today, referencing some friends and people, making an effort to be together. And,
right.
and, your family made a huge effort, everybody to get there and be there together, for sure.
They really did.
You don't find that everywhere today, for sure.
Well, no matter what our family has, whatever issues your family has, whatever issues my family has, we want to be together.
Yeah.
And we know so many families that do not want to be together and will not be together. And they're estranged, and there's dissension. And there's another podcast we listened to on the drive up that they would love, and it's called Family Ghosts. And there's this one particular episode called Chinese Food, I think it is.
Yeah.
And so you guys have got to go listen to it. But it's just a beautiful episode about this family. The mom and dad went out to eat and brought home some Chinese leftovers. And when she woke up in the morning to get them, they were gone.
And there's 7 children, right?
6. So she called her 6 children to the table, and for 7 hours she interrogated them. And here they are, 25 years later, still talking about the Chinese
Nobody's
food.
ever admitted to it.
No one will admit to it. They don't know who did it. And the podcast is really,
But it's held them together like glue trying to figure that out.
It has. Yeah. And so sorry to spoil the end. I promise you it's still worth going to hear.
Oh, yeah.
It really is. And the rest of his episodes are so good. But in the end, he says, we don't know who ate it. We don't know who did it. But what we do know is these people, even though they're talking about Chinese food 25 years later, this lady has created a family that wants to be together.
Right.
All these years later, they would rather be nowhere else than yelling about Chinese food in the living room.
That's something my mom has said my whole life, is you have to make an effort to keep people together. And
you do.
It does. It's a lot of work, but well worth it.
Well, that's what I told my brother. I was like, he was the last one to decide to go. And I was like, Bubba, you have to go, because if we take a picture and you're not in it, we can't even frame it. Yeah. You're not there. You have to be there. It just was really special to me, that we were all headed to the same spot, and we were going to get to spend some time together.
Right. Everybody made a huge effort to do it, and it was sure well worth it.
Yeah, it was. Thank you for taking me up there to do that,
You're
babe.
welcome. I enjoyed it.
Thanks, babe.
And just a quick recap of our trip for my farmers out there. The most exciting part to me, obviously, was seeing all the farmland. So we
Give
went
us a report, babe.
We went up the western side of Missouri, all the way across the northern part, halfway down the eastern side of Missouri, all the way across Illinois.
You act like you're talking about food or something.
I know, it was awesome. Halfway across Indiana. And then we went all the way across Kentucky, all the way across Tennessee, all the way across Arkansas, and back to Texas. Mm-hmm. And just for you guys out there growing corn, about half the acres were good to excellent, and the other half were preventive plant to poor. So I think our market analysis, our USDA, is just a little bit off.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, so bought some calls on some hedge corn when I got home.
Did you?
Sure did.
Was that insider?
Oh, no, I actually did it when we were in Indiana, sorry.
Is that considered insider?
No, because I don't know if it's right. I hope nobody takes my advice. It's just what I did after seeing the crop. Aww. But anyway, it was a lot of fun for me. That was my ulterior motive, was getting the crop report and seeing the farmland.
Is it ulterior or ulterior?
Ulterior.
You?
I don't know. Let's say both.
All
so
right.
that was our pizza ag business for our little podcast here. And you got anything else, babe?
Nope, that's all.
All right. Well, as the song says, the road goes on forever and the party never ends.
I love you.
I love you too. We sure appreciate y'all listening today. If you'd like to follow us on social media, you can search for us, Moving On Podcast. That's 3 words, on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We would love to hear from you. With ways you're figuring out how to drop the ropes in each of your own lives, and even ways that you're not. Hell, that's just as entertaining to us. See you in a couple of weeks.